Hello again, and welcome to the second video for lecture number 4. So we're talking about stakeholders and stakeholder theory, and we introduced that notion above. This is just going to continue that discussion. So we have one of the papers I gave you was Savage and Friends, and they talk about stakeholders. And you need to make two critical assessments about your stakeholders. One, their potential to threaten the organization, and two, the potential to cooperate with it. So we have these two ideas. Are they a threat to the organization, or are they a potential partner for cooperation? And then we have this set of factors down here. And again, you can look at, potential for threat, and you can also look for potential for cooperation, and give that a slightly different color to make things kind of pop out on the page. And again, so you can look at the stakeholder and determine if they control key resources needed by your organization. Maybe this is a supplier that supplies that one critical part. Maybe this is, it's an organization with a unionized labor force, and those stakeholders, the unionized labor, right? They control those workers and so on. So if there's a threat, right? If the shareholder, or the stakeholder controls those key resources, and there's a potential for threat, it's going to increase. Potential for threat. There you go. And if we have a cooperative environment, we'll have this increase corresponding on this side. You can also look at power in the organization. Who has the power? And is that going to increase or decrease potential for threat, potential for cooperation? Likewise, supportive action, so on and so forth. And you can look at, multiple stakeholders and forming coalitions. And is that going to increase or decrease the potential for threat or cooperation? Where things get interesting is when you start looking at the stakeholder potential for threat or for cooperation in the organization. You put on a 2x2 matrix, and you have a low, low, high, high kind of setup here. So again, we have, if we have stakeholders which have the potential to negatively impact our organization, they pose a high threat. Conversely, a high opportunity for cooperation, we can come up with a generic collaboration strategy. So let's work with those stakeholders and get them on board and so on. And in the low quadrant over here, we have a stakeholder that basically has no real power. They're not really a potential threat, but they're also not really a potential cooperator as well. So we can just monitor them, because what might happen is, as we're monitoring them, they may change. Maybe they become a little bit more active, right? And they become more cooperative. Hey, let's work together on different projects, in which case we could start to involve them. Or they become more active. Whoops. They become more active and more of a threat to the organization, in which case we need to start defending against them. So we might have a noisy kind of group out here that's not too thrilled with our environmental practices and so on. But when they start up, buying up shares and showing up at company meetings and so on, it may be a different strategy that we need. So again, you can look at potential for threat, potential for cooperation, and these are interesting bits when you sort of put it on a 2x2 matrix. Okay, there we go. One thing we did in class was we looked at power, legitimacy, and urgency. So we have stakes, we have stakeholders who have those stakes, and then the question is, how much power do they have? Is it legitimate or not? And what is the urgency? And we have this set of questions here. Who are the stakeholders? What are the stakes? What opportunities and challenges? These are the threats and the potential for cooperation they represent. What responsibilities in terms of economic, legal, ethical, and philanthropic do we have? And then what strategies or actions should we take? And that goes right back to this 2x2 matrix. And again, really generic kinds of things, but it gives you an idea for what's going on. And again, we have this little Venn diagram. If we have a stakeholder that has power, but currently doesn't have legitimacy or any urgency, they're dormant. And if we have someone with legitimacy, again, with little or no power, little or no urgency, we call them discretionary. And you can read through the paper to find out more about these details. And we might have stakeholders that are demanding urgency. There they are, demanding stakeholders. But again, without any power or legitimacy, they're just an irritant, like a mosquito in your ear. Where things get interesting is where all of these overlap. And there's 7 where we have stakeholders that have power, legitimacy, and urgency, what this paper calls the definitive stakeholder. So again, I urge you to read the whole paper and get all the background information on all these stakeholders.